Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. I do apologize for not getting any videos in for the past few days. I've been in Pittsburgh the whole time and on a work trip, so unfortunately just wasn't able to really get anything done. But that said, now I'm back and I should be able to be posting replays much more consistently. So in this game, we are on the map Prague, and we are playing as the Lizardmen against the Skaven. And one of the things I really wanted to try out was Skink Chiefs, or Skink Chief spam, because these guys are definitely very annoying to deal with. They're definitely pretty powerful for their cost, and so I did bring two of them and wanted to try them out. For my lord, I did bring Krokgar. I was kind of tempted to bring Mazdamundi for the magic, because obviously Skink Chiefs don't have magic, but then decided that Krokgar is cheaper, and he's still an absolute powerhouse. So I decided to go with him. I did bring Shem's Burning Gaze, Sacred Spawning of Eitzel, as well as the Swiftness of Eitzel, just for all that mobility. And as usual, he does have his Frenzy, his Cold-Blooded, and all those things. So very, very powerful lord. Great at fighting large, but also decent trampling through infantry. Alongside him, we did bring two Skink Chiefs on Pterodons, and one of the reasons I thought they'd be powerful against the Skaven is that they can both pick away at their lords, but they can also take out artillery pieces pretty effectively. If you try this out in campaign or customs or anything, you can see that these guys generally target the artillery pieces. They fire pretty quickly, and so you can knock out the actual guns and quickly take off enemy artillery offline for the rest of your army. My front line here is composed of a bunch of Sarge Warriors with shields. Of course, these guys are pretty cheap and cost-effective against Skaven, who don't really have any infantry to deal with them. They are backed by Feral Bastiladon on one end and a Bastiladon with a Verification Crystal on the other. Obviously, there's a good risk of the Feral Bastiladon rampaging, but still, it's a cheap unit that does cause fear and terror, so very decent. Two units of Sarge Spears with shields are backing that up, as well as a single unit of Temple Guard, just to kind of provide a linchpin in case I need something to deal with Stormvermin. And the Sarge Spears and Shields can help deal with, say, Rat Ogres or Hellpit Abominations or those sorts of nasties. And then out on the flank, two units of Chameleon Skinks, which are basically a must-have, but to counteract enemy skirmishing, poke away at Rat Ogres and that sort of stuff. For my opponent, he did decide to go deploy very wide, probably trying to kind of trap my army and snipe away at it, forcing me to split up my forces. On one end, he does have a Plague Claw Catapult backed up by some Stormvermin, then a pocket of Rat Ogres and Clanrat Spears, more Rat Ogres and Clanrat Spears with a Gracier of Plague. This is an interesting choice, especially because he's on foot. Usually if you see Graciers, they are on their Screaming Bell, but not in this case. You can see he did bring most of his spells. He does have Arcane Conduit, he does have Plague, Vermintide, Wither, actually all of his spells, surprisingly. Even the Dread 13th to spawn Stormvermin. So definitely a very powerful collection of spells here, though a very, very squishy lord, and definitely probably pretty susceptible to the Skink Chiefs. My opponent also does have two Doom Wheels. These guys do cause fear and terror, and one of the things worth keeping in mind is that Sarge Spears and Sarge Warriors are susceptible to fear and terror. They're not immune to psychology, and they don't even cause fear, so they are actually pretty, yeah, they can definitely take quite a bit of hurt from those morale debuffs. Two units of Gutter Runner Slingers with Poison are out here on the flank, kind of a similar role to the Skink Skirmishers, just to poke away at my troops, be a nuisance. And then another unit of Stormvermin's Halberds, as well as a Warp Lightning Cannon over here. Personally, I think second Warp Lightning Cannon would have been better than the Plague Claw. Usually it's the big monsters that give the Skaven trouble, but we'll definitely see how things work out. You can see I'm immediately pushing forward, no real reason to camp back and try to snipe things down. And my main goal right here is really to kind of crush this pocket of infantry and deal with have my my Skink Chiefs deal with the artillery pieces. You can see my Chameleon Skinks do push up here. They will start poking away a little bit at the Stormvermin, though obviously with their low AP values, so I do believe just 2 or 3, they're at 3 AP. They're not going to be doing very much to the Stormvermin. They do get a little volley in there, they do cause some damage, and force my opponent to respond. In the meantime, you can see the Plague Claw is going to start getting picked away at by the Skink Chief, and as these Rat Ogres start closing the gap, I'm going to start focusing on them with the Blow Darts, because that drops their speed down to 46. It actually means the Chameleon Skinks are almost fast enough, or they actually are fast enough to escape. In the meantime, the Plague Claw you can see is getting chipped away at, and we're going to kind of watch how fast you can go down. Out on the flanks here, my opponent does plow the Doom Wheels into Sarge Spears, tying them down for a little bit, but you can see the Plague Claw's already lost a gun, and it's probably going to lose the others in a short while. Over here, my infantry is kind of trying to catch up to these Rat Ogres, get those Sarge Spears on point, while the Bastiladon and the Sarge Warriors will push into the mob of Clanrat Spears, who obviously are not very good against the Bastiladon. Over here, in the meantime, the Plague Claw Catapult is losing its another gun. It's down to one firing model. At this point, you can see the Rat Ogres getting chipped away at by a mix of Star Spears. Even the Star Warriors are in there, and you can see the Clan Rats actually do terror out here as they get charged in the flank by Star Warriors. Over here on the other flank, things are going much more poorly. You can see the Star Warriors' shields, despite Cold Blooded being popped and all that sort of stuff, are falling apart. Crockguard does dive in to help, and the Temple Guard are anchoring things. But this Bastiladon is definitely in a rough spot here. You can see a summon of Clan Rats is going to be backing up my opponent's troops, and we're definitely not in a good position. In the meantime, my Star Spears are trying to zone away these Gutter Runners. Obviously, they are not fast enough to catch them. Crockguard, though, is a tough nut to crack, and he will be whittling down that Doom Wheel pretty quickly. In the meantime, on the flip side, you can see the Rat Ogres have been routed off. The Stormmen are being tied down by the Star Warriors' shields. I'm not entirely sure who wins in this fight. The Star Warriors obviously have better stats overall, but the Stormmen do have that armor, and they do have armor piercing, so they can hit back somewhat effectively. Over here, these Clan Rats are kind of getting whittled down and beaten down by this Feral Bastiladon, and the artillery, as you can see, is offline. In the meantime, my Skink Chiefs are shifting targets. You can see my opponent's Warp Lightning Cannon actually hasn't really been firing. My opponent's apparently forgotten about it. And here's Grey Seer over here is getting sniped away. And you can see because of that low armor and very poor survivability, he's getting chipped away at with incredible speed. Now, one of the things worth keeping in mind is that unlike, say, Wood Elf arrows from your Glady, the darts on the Skink Chiefs are not homing, so they can potentially miss. Nonetheless, you can see they're chipping away at this guy very, very quickly. Over here, the Star Spears do collapse as they get flanked. My Temple Guards are hot in pursuit, though, with the backing of Crockguard, the Feral Bastiladon, and these Chameleon Skinks. Unfortunately, I did pop a Cold-Blooded on my normal Bastiladon over on this end, which was a complete waste. It was simply a misclick because I was clicking on the cards at the bottom. Nonetheless, these Stormmen are not doing too great. The Bastiladon's in there, and now we're shifting our healthy troops over to the flank. You can see the poor Grey Seer does go down, which is going to be crippling for the Skaven, who really need that leadership. The Warp Lightning Cannon is teeing off right now, though not really well prioritized. Aiming at my Chameleon Skinks, I do believe. And you can see things are definitely looking a little grim. Now, I'm going to start sending my Skink Chief over. I'm going to simply gun it right across these Gutter Runners. I'm going to ignore them. I don't really feel like dealing with them. I need to take those Warp Lightning Cannons offline before they start doing too much damage, because I could still pull my opponent back into the game, despite how the balance of power has kind of stabilized here. You can see I do cast a Hand of the Gods there at the Stormmen. Definitely a bit of a waste. I wanted to mostly just see what it would do. Only took off about 4 models, so nothing great, nothing to brag about. Over here you can see the mix of Gutter Runners as well as Warp Lightning Cannon fire is already going into the Skink Chiefs, but nonetheless they should be able to keep firing and hopefully bring some of those guns down. As you can see, I'm kind of skirmishing around here, trying to avoid the Gutter Runner fire, because obviously it could do quite a bit of hurt, and try to pick off these Warp Lightning Cannons, get those guns offline, and settle things that way. Over here you can see the Stormmen gap closing pretty quickly on my Chameleon Skinks, and I don't pull back because I'm not on top of my micro. Definitely another big mistake. In the meantime, these Gutter Runners over here being a nuisance, trying to deal with the Bastiladon and Temple Guard, but once again, these guys don't have the greatest AP either. You can see on the other end, Warp Lightning Cannon still does have its models, though it's just lost one. I do believe I'm actually kind of interested to see how much AP. I think it's only 1 or 2. The AP on the Gutter Runner Slingers is only 2, so they're even worse than the Skink Skirmishers. Nonetheless, you can see the Warp Lightning Cannon has lost a model. I'm simply kiting around it as it tries to rotate and pivot and keep up with the circling Skink Chiefs, and they're slowly but surely chipping away at the health on the actual guns, and soon this should be taken offline entirely. Over here, the Stormmen do get picked apart by focused fire from the flanks, by the Temple Guard jumping in there, all that sort of stuff. On the flank here, Clan Rat Spears being chased off by Star Warriors, which is not really a fight. The Gutter Runners also getting run down, and the gun, as you can see here, the Warp Lightning Cannon has gone offline, lost all its guns, and that is going to be game for my opponent. So definitely there were some mistakes with my opponent not keeping track of his Warp Lightning Cannon, but the Skink Chiefs actually proved pretty effective at just shutting down guns. That's one of the things that I've found them surprisingly good at in campaign. They'd actually shoot at the artillery pieces themselves rather than at the crews, and so they can fairly quickly take artillery pieces offline. That's definitely one of those interesting little perks they have. They're one of the few units that are really good at quickly taking artillery pieces offline. That said, really, I think the main carrying in this game, simply because of the way my opponent deployed, was probably done by the kind of frontline troops who just slogged through all that infantry, plowed through it pretty quickly, crushed the Rat Ogres. I definitely don't think this is a bad comp against the Ratmen. Crockguard, of course, did shut down the Doom Wheels pretty hard. Feral Bastiladon with the Verification Crystals, always good. You do want to watch out for those Rat Ogres, but you can kind of plow through Clan Rat Spears and even do some damage to Stormmen with Halberds. Definitely, I think those Skink Chiefs, though, even if you're willing to sacrifice magic or you planning to run Mazda Mundi, I definitely think Skink Chiefs are a viable pick just for that for those blow dart guns, which can knock artillery offline. Because in this game, they did manage to snipe the Grey Seer of Plague. They did manage to take those plague claw catapults, and you can see they've got most of their crew are still there for both of the guns. But with no weapon to man, they're basically useless. They're basically a worse variant of Skaven slaves. So that was definitely pretty nifty. So I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. If you have any comments, criticism, any questions about the comp or Moral Empire or anything like that, be sure to share those down in the comments below, and I'll respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.